Hello, have you ever found yourself in a situation where you need help the most? And then the institutions that are prepared to help you in such situation couldn't do that. And then you found help in the least expected places. Well, the story of Padre Piro and Vera Maria, it's one of those cases. Welcome to You Be the Judge. Padre Piro was a son of a humble farmer in Italy. And he grew up a very humble life. And at some point, he had this calling to become a priest. So he entered the seminary in 1903. And then in 1910, he was ordained a priest. He was very spiritual, but there was nothing very significantly different from him and other priests until something strange happened to him. In September 1908, he was doing his regular morning devotion in a secluded place alone. While he was praying in a seemingly dark place, he noticed something. It was a bright light, and then he opened his eyes and looked. It was a very bright light surrounding a man who walked out from the altar where he was praying. And then the man moved forward. He was very scared. He stood up and walked backward because he was very scared. He didn't know what to make out of it, but he could tell that this was sacred, and he didn't know what to do. And then he made a statement. He asked, "What do you want from me?" The man didn't say anything, and suddenly Padre Piro fell on the ground. And when he looked up, the man was gone. But something happened to him that changed his life. Padre Piro realized that there was blood on his hands. On the palms of his hands, there were blood, and he could feel some pain on his side, and there were blood. He was bleeding from there. And then he looked at his feet. He saw blood on his feet. There were physical wounds that were bleeding from both of his hands and his feet and his side. He managed to drag himself back to his room. He didn't say anything about it. He cleaned his wounds and his feet everywhere. He cleaned it up. And what he did next, instead of crying of pain or being scared or anything, he started praising God. Of course, he wouldn't have hidden this for so long, so he decided to show other priests what was going on. And of course, it was suspicious. Like, no one really believed him that much. So the church officials decided to call in a medical practitioner to come in and assess him. And of course, after assessment, it was a wound. But then, did he inflict the wound on himself? That was a question yet to be answered. So the doctors decided to treat the wound, cover the wound up in a way that even if you try to open up this band-aid, they will be able to know that someone touched this wound. So he was treated and it was covered up with a plan to assess him over a week. In other words, by a week, the wound is supposed to start showing signs of healing. That was done. And then after a week, the doctor came back and assessed the wound. The wound wasn't healing. It was as it was when they saw it still fresh. Yeah, and of course, news spread around Giovanni Rotondo in Italy where he was based, and people flocked in. Christians, non-Christians, they were all around just to get a glimpse of this man and also get healings from him because they already believed it was stigmata. As people flocked in, some people started selling his pictures for money, and other people started selling clothes that were actually dipped in the blood of animals like rabbits and stuff like that, and started selling them for money, deceiving people and saying that it was a wipe from Padre Piro's wounds. So people were buying it, and this caused chaos in the Christendom. And then the Christendom decided to send him on an exile. So he went on an exile for 3 good years, and everything was silent because they weren't very sure of the authenticity of this happening. After the 3 years exile, he was instructed not to show his wounds no more while they still investigate on what was going on. So he decided to cover it up with a glove, so he wears gloves when he's going out. But then it's hard to conceal this kind of thing, and news spread around and people started flocking in, and they were receiving miracles. Over in Pennsylvania in the United States, this family known as the Calandra, they heard about Padre Piro. But before that, their child, which was born in 1966, she was the 5th child, she had this congenital defect. She had a urinary tract defect which affected her kidneys, her urinary bladder, and before she clocked 2 years, she has already had 4 surgical operations done on her. And one of the days they brought this child in for more surgical procedures, the doctor walked out and said something that they never expected. The doctor made it clear that he has already removed the little child's urinary bladder, and the mom was worried, like, how do you expect this child to live without a urinary bladder? And the doctor said she is not going to leave. In other words, the child is going to die. So the doctor advised this couple to take the child home and give her comfort while her time draws near. That was very devastating for this couple. So they took the child home, and then when the mom heard about Padre Piro, she did something most moms would do. The child mom, who was willing to do anything to save her child, decided to send a telegram to Padre Piro all the way in Italy. She did that, but she didn't get a confirmation for Padre Piro. But one day, something strange happened. While she was sitting in her living room with a little child on the floor laying down, she doesn't have any flower around. The fragrance of roses filled the entire living room. She looked around, no one walked in with roses. She could perceive it, and suddenly she heard a voice of Padre Piro. She couldn't see him, but she heard a clear voice that told her to bring her child to Italy, and she shouldn't waste time about it. Immediately, she invested on that very expensive trip. Vera Calandra took her 2-year-old daughter to San Giovanni Rotondo, Italy, with the hope of seeing Padre Piro. But when she got there, she was shocked. She got there with a lot of people who wants to see same Reverend Father. And the father at that point was 80 years. He was frail. Actually, he was sick at that point. And they almost made it impossible for her to see the Reverend Father. But somehow, she was able to see the Reverend Father. This lady, who believed that she came with a lot of problems, expected something more tangible than what the Reverend Father did. The Reverend Father was wheeled out in a wheelchair by another man, and while they were wheeling him through, all he did was touch the little girl on the head. The Reverend Father didn't even look at the mom, and that was it. It just happened in a split second. But then, the mom, who expected something more tangible, then she got it somehow. And then she had this private audience with Padre Piro, and Padre Piro, after explaining what happened, what's going on with her child, Padre Piro prayed for the little child, and that was it. And they flew back to the United States. Few weeks later, the mom, the dad, and the little child decided to go for a regular medical checkup on this little child. And when they got there, they did their regular scans, and the doctor saw something he never expected to see, that he had to go call the parent to show them the results that he saw on the scan. And the doctor said he can see some things that looks like a urinary bladder on the scan. And the mom was like, "Hey, doctor, remember you surgically removed this urinary bladder before they went for a treat." And the doctor said, "Yeah, but it looks like worm." But the doctor said, "Well, we'll keep looking at it and see how it turns out." And the doctor told them whatever they are doing to make this work, they should keep doing it. And few weeks after this happened, Padre Piro died. But before he died, the wounds he had was almost completely healed. And when the story was told, the girl was already 26. Was the miracles staged? Was Vera Maria lying? Were all the thousands of miracles that were attributed to him all a lie? Well, you be the judge.